Think and Grow Rich isn't something you just read once. It's something you become. A man once walked away from a fortune, not because he was lazy, not because he was stupid, not because the gold wasn't there. He walked away because he believed it was gone. Years later, the truth would be discovered. He wasn't hundreds of miles away from success. He wasn't years away from success. He wasn't even close to failure. He was only a few feet away. And that mistake became one of the most expensive, the most famous lessons in Think and Grow Rich. Because the same thing is happening to people every single day. They quit businesses. They quit dreams. They quit goals. Quit on themselves, never realizing how close they actually were. This is the story of R.U. Darby, and it's a story every ambitious man needs to hear. Because this story isn't about gold. It's about what happens right before a breakthrough. It began in the mountains of Colorado, a time where the gold fever had spread across America. Men were abandoning everything they knew, their homes, their jobs, their comfort, all for a chance of finding wealth buried beneath the earth. Darby's uncle was one of those men. He became obsessed with the idea that somewhere beneath those mountains, a fortune was waiting. Most people would laugh. Most people would have called him delusional. But belief has a strange power. Once a man becomes convinced of something, he'll sacrifice it all. Fight for it, suffer for it. He'll continue long after everyone has quit. So Darby's uncle began digging. And eventually Darby joined him. Day after day, week after week, month after month. The work was brutal. The mountain offered no guarantees. Only rock, dirt, sweat, and hope. Every swing of the pickaxe carried the same thought. What if today is the day? Then one day it happened. The drill struck something valuable, something real. Gold. Not hope, not possibility. Gold. Imagine that feeling. Imagine searching for something for months and finally discovering proof that you were right. Proof that the dream wasn't foolish. Proof that the sacrifice meant something. The ore samples were sent away for testing. The results came back rich, very rich. The reports confirmed it. This wasn't a small discovery. This wasn't enough gold to survive. This was enough gold to become wealthy. Enough gold to transform generations. The mine was real. The dream was real. The future seemed guaranteed. Darby and his uncle could already see the life waiting for them. They borrowed money, purchased machinery, expanded operations, prepared for the fortune they believed was coming. Every sign pointed towards success. Everything they had worked for was finally becoming reality. Then something happened. Something neither man expected. The gold disappeared. The veins simply stopped. The drills kept turning. Nothing. They searched harder. Nothing. The machinery kept running. The bills kept growing. The gold was gone. First, they stayed optimistic. Maybe they had missed it. Maybe it shifted. Maybe the next few feet will reveal something. A rich deposit, maybe. So they kept digging day after day, week after week, searching desperately for what had once seemed certain. But every day brought the same result. Rock, dirt, silence, no gold. The excitement became frustration. The confidence became doubt. And the dream began slipping through their fingers. Eventually they reached a conclusion. The mine was finished. The opportunity was gone. The dream was over. So they stopped. They sold the machinery. They sold the equipment. Accepted defeat. Walked away from the mountain. Walked away from the mine. Walked away from the fortune they believed no longer existed. And buried beneath the Colorado ground, they left their dream behind. If the story ended there, it would just be another tale about a failed gold mine. Another dream that didn't work. Another reminder that life doesn't always go according to plan. But that's not where the story ends, because what happened next is the reason Napoleon Hill included this story in Think and Grow Rich. After Darby and his uncle quit, they sold their mining equipment to another miner, not a wealthy investor. They sold it to a junk man, a man who bought scrap metal for a living. Nothing special, nothing glamorous, just a junk dealer looking for a bargain. Let's be honest, most people would have done exactly what Darby did. Buy the equipment, take the metal, move on. But this junk man did something different. Before giving up on the mine, he asked a question, a simple question, one that changed everything. He hired a mining engineer, someone who understood geology, someone who understood how gold veins behave beneath the earth, someone who could analyze what had happened. The engineer examined the mine, studied the rock formations, reviewed the drill records, and after completing his investigation, he delivered a shocking conclusion. Darby and his uncle had quit because they didn't understand something called a fault line. The gold hadn't disappeared. The vein hadn't ended. The opportunity hadn't vanished. The gold simply shifted. The engineer knew exactly where to look. The junk man resumed drilling, not miles away, not another mountain, not another state, not another year of searching. Just a little deeper, a little further, a little longer, and then he found it. Gold, a massive gold deposit, one of the richest discoveries in that area. The fortune Darby had dreamed about, the fortune he had worked for, the fortune he had sacrificed for, the fortune he had almost reached, but was still there, waiting, buried beneath the same mountain, hidden beneath the same ground, only a few feet beyond the place where he stopped. Imagine that realization. Imagine discovering that something you wanted, everything you worked for, everything you sacrificed was right there. Not far away, not impossible, not unattainable, right there, waiting on the other side. One more push, one more effort, one more act of persistence. That's what makes this story so painful. Darby wasn't wrong, the goal was there. His belief wasn't foolish, the dream was real, the opportunity was real, the fortune was real. The only mistake he made was quitting, was stopping. He quit too soon, and that's a mistake millions of people continue making today. Not because they're incapable, not because they lack talent, not because they lack opportunity, because they reached a point where success stops looking obvious, a point where the results disappear, a point where doubt becomes louder than faith, and then they walk away. Just like Darby. What's fascinating is that the junk man wasn't smarter, he wasn't more talented, he wasn't more deserving. He simply asked one more question. He sought one more perspective. He persisted a little longer. That's the teeny difference. Created a massive difference in the outcome. One man walked away. The other man became wealthy. One man saw failure. The other man saw possibility. One man quit. The other continued. The distance between those two decisions, 3 feet. Think about it. 3 feet between wealth and regret. 3 feet between breakthrough and surrender. 3 feet between success and failure. 3 feet. Not 3 miles, not 3 years, not 3 lifetimes. 3 feet. Woo, that's powerful. By the way, we just dropped our first devotional, link in the description. The 3 feet concept, that's why this story survived many generations, because it isn't really about gold. It's about human nature. It's about what happens when results disappear, when progress becomes invincible, when faith gets tested. It's about the moment every person eventually faces. The moment when quitting feels reasonable. The moment when giving up feels justified. The moment when walking away feels like a smart decision. And it's in that moment that destinies are decided. Because most people assume success is found by starting, but often success is found by continuing, by taking one more step, making one more call, creating one more video, trying one more time, digging a little deeper. Because the truth is, most people don't fail because they're incapable. They fail because they stop. And Darby's story leaves us with one question that should haunt every ambitious person alive. What if the breakthrough you're praying for is sitting just beyond the place you're thinking about quitting? What if the opportunity you're searching for is hidden on the other side of one more effort? What if the dream isn't dead at all? What if you're closer than you think? Because Darby and his uncle weren't miles away from success. They were 3 feet away. The reason Napoleon Hill included the story of Darby in Think and Grow Rich wasn't to teach us about mining. It wasn't about gold. It was about people. Because most men never find their gold. Not because it isn't there, because they stopped digging. That's the lesson. And it's as true today as it was when Darby walked away from the mountain. The mind changed, the gold changed, the world changed, but human nature didn't. Today, men are still quitting 3 feet from gold. They just call it different things. A YouTube channel, a business, a fitness goal, a financial goal, a new version of themselves. The pattern isn't always the same. At first they're excited, motivated, inspired. Everything feels possible. They launch the channel, they start the business, join the gym, create the plan, set the goal. And in the beginning, it isn't high. Then reality arrives. The views don't come, the customers don't come, the money doesn't come, the transformation doesn't come. At least not as quickly as they expected, and suddenly the gold disappears like it did in Colorado. The videos keep getting uploaded, but nobody watches. The business stays open, but nobody buys. The workout continues, but the mirror barely changes. The effort remains, but the results become invisible. And this is the moment that decides everything, because this is where most people quit. Not at the beginning, not before they start, right before persistence becomes necessary. That's the season that breaks most men, the season where effort is required, but evidence is missing. The season where you're working, but nothing seems to be happening. The season where doubt starts whispering, maybe this isn't working, maybe this isn't for me, maybe I should move on, maybe I should quit. Maybe this wasn't built for me. And because the results aren't visible, they assume progress isn't happening. And that's a lie. The roots grow before the tree appears. The foundation is built before the building rises. The gold is discovered before the fortune is made. Most growth is invisible before it comes undeniable. Most people don't like invisible progress. They want proof immediately. They want results immediately. They want success to announce itself. And when it doesn't, they leave. They walk away. Think about how many YouTube channels died after 20 videos. How many businesses died after 6 months. How many fitness journeys died after 30 days. How many dreams were abandoned because the reward wasn't immediate. Not because success wasn't possible, because persistence became uncomfortable, because the goal temporarily disappeared. And that's the tragedy, because nobody knows how close they are. The man who quits at video number 50 doesn't even know if video 51 was gonna be the video that changed everything. The entrepreneur who closes the business doesn't know if the next customer would have transformed the company. The man who leaves the gym doesn't know if the next breakthrough was weeks away. The person who gives up on themselves never discovers who they could have become. Let me repeat that. The man who gives up on himself will never discover who he could have become. That's why this story is so powerful, because Darby teaches us something most people never learn. You cannot judge success by what you see today. You can only judge it by whether you're willing to continue, because there will always be a season where the gold disappears, A season where the views disappear. A season where the money disappears. A season where the motivation disappears. A season where the evidence disappears. And in that season, most people walk away. Not because they failed, because they got tired. Tired of waiting, tired of believing, tired of digging. But the men who eventually win, the men who eventually find their goal, understand something different. They understand that persistence is not required when things are easy. Persistence is required when things stop making sense, when results go silent, when the progress becomes invisible, when quitting starts sounding reasonable. That's the test. That's always the test. And that's why most men never find their goal, because they mistake temporary silence for permanent failure. They mistake a difficult season for a dead dream. They mistake a hidden opportunity for a finished story. And just like Darby, they walk away, not knowing the breakthrough they wanted was buried only a little deeper. There is one sentence in Think and Grow Rich that has haunted ambitious men for nearly a century. Napoleon Hill wrote, "Failure is a trickster with a keen sense of irony and cunning." Think about that. Failure is not described as an event, not a circumstance, not a result. A trickster, something deceptive, something clever, something that makes you believe one thing while the truth is something entirely different. And that's failure's cruel joke. It rarely shows up at the beginning. It rarely attacks when the dream is new, when you're motivated, when you're excited, when the vision is fresh. No, failure waits, patiently, quietly, watching, waiting for the perfect moment. The moment when you're invested time. The moment when you sacrifice. The moment when you've endured enough pain to start questioning yourself. Then it arrives, not to defeat you, to deceive you. Because failure's greatest weapon isn't difficulty. It's doubt, it's whispers. Maybe this isn't working. Maybe you're wasting your time. Maybe this isn't meant for you. Maybe you should move on. And the longer you listen, the louder it gets. Until quitting starts sounding reasonable. Until surrender starts sounding intelligent. Until walking away feels like the mature decision. That's the trick. Because what most people don't understand is that failure has a cruel habit. It often appears right before the breakthrough, right before the opportunity, right before the promotion, right before the business finally works, right before the audience finally notices, right before the transformation fully becomes visible, right before life changes. That's what happened to Darby. The gold disappeared, the pressure increased, the evidence vanished. Everything told him the dream was over. Everything told him to quit. Everything told him to turn around and walk away. And he listened. 3 feet before the breakthrough. 3 feet before the reward. 3 feet before the fortune. And history has been repeating that lesson ever since. Every day, someone quits too soon. Somebody abandons the dream. Somebody walks away from the business. Somebody stops posting. Somebody stops training. Somebody stops believing. Not because success wasn't coming, because failure convinced them it wasn't. That's the irony. The moment that feels most like failure may actually be the moment closest to success. But you'll never know if you leave. You'll never know if you stop. You'll never know if you walk away. That's why persistence is so rare. Not because persistence is difficult, because persistence requires faith. Faith when there's no evidence. Faith when there's no applause. Faith when there's no immediate reward. Faith when everything around you says quit. Most people can't do that. Most people need proof. They need visible progress. They need consistent reassurance. And when they don't get it, they leave. But the men who eventually win understand something different. They understand that the final test often looks like defeat. The final lesson often feels like frustration. The final obstacle often feels impossible. Not because the dream is dying, because the dream is close. Close enough to demand one more level of commitment, one more level of belief, One more level of persistence. The mountain gets hardest near the top. The race gets hardest near the finish. The mind gets darkest before the gold appears again. And if you don't know that, you'll mistake the final test for the end of the journey. You'll see temporary defeat and call it permanent failure. You'll see resistance and call it a dead end. You'll see pressure and call it proof that it isn't working, when in reality, it may be proof that you're closer than you've ever been. That's why this story survived for generations, because it forces every single one of us to ask the same question. What am I walking away from too soon? What am I abandoning because I can't see the result yet? What dream am I burying because the goal temporarily disappeared? Because the truth is, nobody knows where their 3 feet is. Nobody knows if it's tomorrow, next week, or next month. That's why we created a daily devotional. It's a men's devotional for daily discipline. Link in the description or pinned in the comments section. Our next attempt could be the one that blows us up. That's what makes persistence such a powerful force. The person who keeps digging eventually discovers what the quitter never will. Whether the goal is right there all along. So before you walk away, before you quit, before you tell yourself it's over, before you decide the dream isn't working, before you abandon the goal, dig a little deeper. One more day, one more effort, one more attempt, because history is filled with men who quit 3 feet from goal. If you're curious why what you want hasn't arrived yet, watch this video on the screen.